Alright guys, Wes here, welcome back to the channel. So as you know, Elden Ring is easily one of the best games to come out this decade, and its influence on open world action RPGs will be felt for years to come. From Software has been working very hard on the first and only paid expansion to the game, Shadow of the Erdtree, and there is a lot to go over about this DLC as we inch closer to the scheduled release date of June 21st. Now, with there being only one trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree, there's a lot of stuff that we do know, but there's a lot of unknowns as well. So in today's video, we're going to talk about everything that you should know about Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, when could we get the second reveal trailer, as well as some details you may have missed recently. Check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's get into it. So following the big reveal trailer earlier this year, From Software confirmed many of the gameplay details that they had been working on, and from the sounds of it, Shadow of the Erdtree might end up being the best video game expansion of all time, or at the very least be a close second to Blood and Wine. From Software confirmed that this is their biggest DLC to date, and this company is the one that made some huge expansions in the past. For example, the Dark Souls games all had a crazy amount of DLC content, and the Elden Ring team has confirmed that the amount of content in Shadow of the Erdtree is going to be comparable to an entirely new game, meaning this DLC is going to be a bigger Souls-like game than a lot of entire Souls-like games, which is pretty crazy. According to FromSoft, Shadow of the Erdtree is going to feature an entirely new map that's been physically disconnected from the main game's map. So if you were expecting this expansion to simply add some space to the existing map like many other open world DLCs do, you're in for something much bigger than that. The new map is going to be slightly larger than Limgrave, and according to the game's director, the design will be similar to the main Elden Ring design philosophy, meaning tons of dungeons to explore with a lot of new enemies and characters to stumble upon during our journey. He also said the team did some experimenting with the space between the fields and dungeons to not only make the game more exciting, but also to keep you on your toes between major events. Now, in order to get access to the new map, you'll have to have gained access to Miquella's Arm in Mohg's Palace of the base game. So for those of you that are watching this video that have never played Elden Ring, mark this down, as you'll have to do this prior to actually playing the new expansion. So Miquella's Arm will be the warping point to the expansion content, allowing you to exist entirely on its own from the base game experience. However, this means you also have to play the base game for quite some time in order to get to that point, which I think is a good call. So if you haven't played Elden Ring, definitely start playing to get to that access point. But another reason this is good is it'll make sure that the player is familiar with the base game's mechanic and combat of Elden Ring, and keep the learning curve from being too insane. And this also allows the story of Shadow of the Erdtree to take place at a specific point in the main story, which I think is a nice touch on From Software's point to help build up the world a little more. Because I think we can all agree that if this were a prequel or a sequel, it really wouldn't hit as hard to the lore as if it took place right in the middle of the main experience. Now, thanks to a report from Eurogamer, we know about 8 new weapon categories being added to the game with the DLC, as well as a ton of new individual weapons, including new swords, knives, and armor pieces, as well as new weapon skills and spells to learn. There's also apparently going to be a more sophisticated fist combat system, as evidenced by the shot in the trailer where the character does a flying kung fu combo on an enemy, which honestly, that's probably one of the most hype parts of the trailer for me. Now, there are also reportedly at least another 10 bosses being added to the game with this expansion, with the difficulty set to be a lot harder than some of the base game fights. We're also assuming that everything is going to build up to the final boss, or rather one of the final boss fights against Mesmer the Impaler, who is definitely looking like one of the main bosses of the story. It's also reported that Shadow of the Erdtree is going to feature a number of changes to the leveling and XP system, and that will be exclusive to the new map, or rather the Land of Shadows. They're basically using the Sekiro system for Shadow of the Erdtree, which I think that's a nice way of making sure that nobody is too over or rather under leveled when coming into the new DLC. Now, one question that I've seen a lot is, what platforms is Shadow of the Erdtree going to release on? Will it come to PS4 and Xbox One? And honestly, I think that's a really solid question, because cross-gen games have been a bit inconsistent when it comes to the 8th generation support for post-launch content. For example, Cyberpunk 2077 was a cross-gen game but did not release on PS4 or Xbox One. So if you wanted to play Phantom Liberty, you basically had to have a Series X, S, PS5, or a PC, which prior to the big reveal for Shadow of the Erdtree, there was a lot of people wondering whether or not we would get it for PS4 and Xbox One. Elden Ring, of course, launched on both the 8th and 9th generation consoles in 2022, and it's been confirmed 100% that the paid expansion will be released on every platform, including the Xbox One and PS4, which is great news. So for those of you that were curious about it, I know I've seen it in my comment section, yes, you could play it on PS4 or Xbox One. Now, there's probably not many people that are playing Elden Ring on the PS4 or Xbox One in 2024, but those versions of the game still sold a lot of copies back in 2022, and I think it makes perfect sense to make sure that those consoles are supported and have access to that content as well. So good on From Software for making sure that the 8th generation consoles aren't left out of the fun when the DLC drops. Now, with that being said, there is one big concern regarding the release on PS4 and Xbox One, and that's whether or not those consoles will be powerful enough to support Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree? What kind of FPS should we look forward to? Will there be any issues at launch for them to work out? Will the game be optimized and perform well on those consoles? And just generally whether or not people should be concerned about buying the game on PS4 or Xbox One. To which I will say this, there's a reason for reviews. This is an expansion, so you might want to just be a little bit cautious before buying the expansion. And the most likely situation is that all platforms are going to be optimized pretty well, and there's likely not going to be any issues, but who knows? We won't know until the game is out. Personally, I'm expecting the quality of this expansion to be top notch in terms of just how good the expansion will be, as well as how optimized it's going to be on the platforms. With how good Elden Ring already was and how long the team has been working on this experience, I think it's easily going to be one of the best reviewed and most beloved releases of the year. From Software just simply does not miss, especially whenever Miyazaki is in the director's chair. This expansion is going to be an absolute banger, no doubt in my mind. Now, as for when we're going to see the next trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree, or rather just the next reveal, there are two primary theories right now, and both of them are pretty close to being confirmed one way or another. Some players are suggesting that the next trailer will be shown off at one of the big gaming showcases that are going to take place in the spring, or I guess rather summer. With the Xbox already confirming theirs on June 9th, it can be assumed that there's also going to be a Summer Game Fest event this year, and that will take place in the first week of June as well. From Software has already confirmed that the game is scheduled for release on June 21st, and they're certainly going to release a second trailer for it before that release date comes around. So one of the early mid or June showcases seems like a great time to drop the second trailer, because at that point the launch will be less than 2 weeks away. If I were to give my best guess, I would say that Jeff Keighley has his hands on that trailer probably by now, or at least has secured that exclusive for Summer Game Fest. If you remember right, Summer Game Fest, and rather the Game Awards, has been pivotal to the reveal of Elden Ring, so I'm sure that they're going to want to do right by Jeff Keighley and let him unveil the second trailer. Now, the other theory going around is that From Software is actually going to drop something new before their parent company's next financial report, which would mean that it's going to drop within the next few weeks. Dropping a highly anticipated trailer can do great things for investor confidence, especially right before a financial report. So From Software and Bandai Namco are surely going to be considering the potential for that. However, this would be a bit too early to call it a launch trailer. So if there is a new trailer in the next few weeks, we can basically take that as confirmation of something else, maybe a new trailer or just another reveal that will drop closer to the launch of the expansion, because there's no way that this expansion drops without some kind of launch trailer. Bandai Namco is going to be giving this thing the marketing juice of a full release, as evidenced by the fact that they're selling a massive collector's edition with statues. Speaking of that, if you were able to get a statue, I'm very jealous. I'm actively trying to get one. Now, another thing that I've seen asked quite a bit is whether or not you should play Elden Ring prior to Shadow of the Erdtree's launch, or wait until Shadow of the Erdtree does launch and then just experience everything together. Now, if you're a new player or haven't finished your first playthrough yet, should you take care of that before the expansion comes out, or should you wait until the new content is going to be added? Now, personally, I think if you have any kind of first experience left with Elden Ring at this point, you probably should save it for the DLC version. Meaning, if you haven't played Elden Ring yet or haven't finished it yet, don't do that before the DLC comes out. Shadow of the Erdtree is going to make a massive change to the game and add so much content that it's going to make the experience even crazier for first-time players. And I think if you have the option to get into this game totally blind when the DLC drops, or go in already knowing how everything works and where everything is, you're probably going to wish you hadn't when you play the new DLC, because you're just going to be thinking about how amazing this experience would have been for a first-time player, which is a feeling that basically every From Software player knows well. So if you have the option, go into this game totally blind when the DLC comes out. On behalf of myself and many other players of Elden Ring, I am jealous of you for having that option to do that. The road to launch is getting very short, and I cannot wait to play this game. Let me know if you guys plan on playing Shadow of the Erdtree when it launches. Are you one of the lucky few that will get to experience both Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree for the first time when Shadow of the Erdtree launches? And do you plan on playing the game again before the launch? Let me know down in the comment section. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor, leave a like, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on. Thanks again for watching. This has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.